Hello, everyone. Welcome to APTA Live Student Night. My name is Lindsay Durand. I use she, her pronouns. And tonight's topic is on expanding your student experience through student involvement. So we'll be hearing from our panelists about their experience with student involvement and leadership, and also providing more information on serving on the Student Assembly Board of Directors for the 2021-22 cycle. So tonight we are joined by student board members and leaders, Hannah Cook and Patrick Sweegy. And so I will give them an opportunity to introduce themselves in just a minute and kind of explain how they got involved as student leaders, how they got involved in APTA and what that has done for them. But first, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. So go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments. Tell us where you're from, where you're tuning in from, where you go to school, what year you are, and if you have ever been involved in APTA. So whether that was a leadership position, whether you've gone to an event or a conference, let us know. And if you'd like to spread the word about this event, tell people what you think, and continue this conversation, go ahead and use the hashtag APTA Live on all social media platforms. If you don't follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at APTA Students and on Facebook and Instagram at APTA Student Members. Additionally, if you have any questions throughout the discussion, please drop those in the chat and we'll do our best to make sure we answer them. We'd love to hear your thoughts too, so don't be shy. Now, let's get to know some of our panelists. So we'll start with Hannah. Hannah, can you give us a little bit of an introduction? Tell us a bit about yourself and your future plans as a PT since you just graduated.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I just graduated from the University of Connecticut like a couple weeks ago. Currently looking closely into jobs in the DMV area. So I know that's where Lindsay just moved to as well. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. Hopefully, mostly just looking into pediatrics jobs. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I currently serve as the president of the APTA Student Assembly.
Awesome. And Patrick, can you give us a little bit of an introduction? Tell us who you are, a bit about yourself and your future plans as a PT since you also just graduated.
Yeah, so I just graduated yesterday. Still hasn't hit me yet, but we're rolling with it. So currently not looking for jobs, not actively as. So I'm trying to get prepared for the NPTE, and then my goal is to find a job out in Southern Cal. But currently I am a nominating committee member on the student board of directors.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you, Patrick, can you kind of give us a little bit more information on the student elections? We want to make sure we kind of highlight those tonight. So for anyone tuning in, applications are open for the Student Assembly Board of Directors to serve for the 2021-22 year. So Patrick is here representing the nominating committee, and he's going to give us a little bit of a breakdown of how elections work, if you're interested in applying, what you need to know, and when you'll be elected. So go ahead, Patrick. Let's hear about the elections.
All right, sweet. So main dates. So applications are open now. They end on the 31st. So get those applications in. And then June 21st to July 18th, we'll be holding interviews. Then August 6th, we will have the slate finalized. So you'll be notified by August 6th. During that, then on September 7th, we will be making that slate public. So between August 6th and September 7th, we'll have you just creating some videos. Let the ball start rolling how you want to promote yourself. Then the voting kicks in October 7th, and it's going to be a month-long process. So from October 7th to November 6th, there's going to be voting. So all student members will be able to vote.
And that's fantastic. That was a big change that happened last year, where elections actually went virtual for the first time in Student Assembly Board of Director history. And now all student members, so all 30,000 plus student members, can vote for the Student Assembly Board of Directors. So for those who don't know, the Student Assembly Board of Directors are 10 student members that serve and represent the student population. So the three of us here tonight are all members on that board. It is a year-long position. And it is one of the, at least in my opinion, one of the coolest things I think I've I've ever done, ever been a part of. And it warms my heart. It fuels my passion for physical therapy to be in this role. So I'm excited to hear about your all's experience and how you got involved and how you got to this point, because I mean, it's pretty cool to, at least in my opinion, to represent all of the student members. So Hannah, let's start off with you. How did you first get involved in APTA as a student?
Yeah, so I guess I had like an interesting experience. I've actually always been really, really quiet, and didn't really go to things that were outside of my comfort zone, which basically anything outside of track and field was outside of my comfort zone. So, but then going into grad school, I didn't have track. So I was convinced to attend NSC my first year. It was in Rhode Island, so it was close by, easy to get to. And I went with a couple of my classmates. And then honestly, from there, being at NSC, I loved it. I distinctly remember all of the slated candidates walking around and introducing themselves. And I thought that was so cool. And then I watched a session where Ifosa and Josh spoke. And I feel like they really inspired me to start doing things and get involved. And so that's kind of where the ball got rolling. And I just started applying for things that I thought were really interesting. And I applied for a decent amount of things thinking, well, I'm not gonna, like, I'll just get one of them or something, right? And then all of a sudden I got a lot of the things that I applied for. And I was like, oh no, there's a lot happening now and I don't know if I can do this. But I made it work. And then I kind of found out that I like being busy. I like having a lot on my plate because I need the rigid schedule. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, how the ball got rolling for me.
Yeah, and so Hannah mentioned NSC, which is National Student Conclave, and that was a conference that APTA hosted for just students. So last year was actually the last year for NSC. So we'll have different opportunities in the future for students to get involved. But I remember going to NSC as well in Albuquerque, and that was a very unique experience. And that same thing, like, it really inspired me to want to get involved, like seeing other students who are equally as passionate about physical therapy and also wanting to advance the profession, like that, getting that energy in a room together. It's hard to not want to do more. It's hard to not want to be involved. Patrick, can you explain a little bit about how you got involved in APTA? How did that journey start for you?
So it started for me. I was involved with a couple community events around campus. So every year we have the movement is a local clothing drive. Then after that, my teacher, Manny Young, was like, you should apply for APTA position. So like he could just tell that I was like to be involved in things around the school. So he's like, oh, apply for this. So I applied and I was selected to be on the NSC project committee for Albuquerque, and that was just a super cool experience. My little sub group was worked on the app. So during the app, you get to win different awards for how many people you meet or different conference meetings you went to. So I thought that was like coming up with those ideas was super cool. So that kind of like, oh, what else is there to do within the APTA? So started with a project committee, then made it to co-ambassador, and then from there, I applied to be on the student board, and thankfully I made it here. I did apply at the end of my first year and didn't make it, but it didn't stop me from applying again. So
yeah, that's a great story. I love how you kind of took all of the levels. Like you started at your school and then went it was like project committee, and then you just kind of progressed in terms of leadership roles, and now you're in this national role representing tens of thousands of students. And I think it's like important to note that, because it can be overwhelming to want to get involved. Like I think a lot of students get worried about the time commitment or what they're going to have to do. How are they going to balance this rigorous school schedule? And I know for me, like I was told when I first started PT school that it's going to be hard and you're not really going to have time for anything else. And that kind of deterred me from being involved my first year. Like my first year of PT school, I I went to conferences, like I went to CSM my first year, but was not involved beyond that. Like I had no idea what the APTA had to offer. And since then, obviously have like completely changed my perspective. And I'm like, this is the most like invaluable experience and part of PT school is to get involved and serve as a leader. What do you guys think is the most valuable part of your involvement experience? Like, what do you look back on and you're like, PT school would have been totally different if I didn't have this?
I think just getting involved, it brought me out of my shell more. Just in with different roles, like I had to just talk to people and organize things. And so now, like when I have an assignment, I just like view it in a whole different lens. So it's like, even for school, I was like, all right, this is how my project committee broke it up, and we were able to accomplish it by doing this. And I was like, I kind of bring that knowledge into like the school setting as well.
I totally agree with Patrick. I guess for me, being involved, honestly, the best thing about it is the network. I mean, if we want to get really literal about like, if I didn't have involvement or this network, how would PT school have been different for me? I would not have had a first clinical experience. So, because my first clinical experience got canceled due to COVID, and because I've been so involved and I have grown this network and this, honestly, APTA family, I was able to post on Twitter and say, hey, is anyone willing to take me during this pandemic? And I found a lot of people who were willing to take in students. And so I ended up getting a clinical because of that. And so I've heard of similar stories. I've heard of people getting jobs because of this. I've heard of people getting clinicals and things like that. So to be honest, the best thing for me is the network and the lifelong friends that I've made, and kind of this like family community feel that APTA has.
Yeah, I think honestly, one of the most underrated, but like the easiest ways to connect with other physical therapists or physical therapist assistants is to get a Twitter. Like my world changed when I got a Twitter. Like that is how I connected, like Hannah mentioned, with the PT community. That's how I met like my now fiance. And it's weird to say that, but Twitter is like one of the easiest things you can do and connect with PTs. And like, I love that nominating committee too. Also, every time a new student jumps onto Twitter, they're like, hey, follow them, get involved, like check out this student. And you just start to build your community so much further on Twitter. And it's like, you never would have expected that before, but really it's one of the easiest ways to get involved. For students that are interested in getting involved, like what do you think is necessary? What do they need to be able to get involved?
Passion. Honestly, I think that's like the biggest thing for me. Like I don't, other than like, you just have to want to do it, I guess. And go for positions that you really feel passionate about. But like, other than that, like that's really the big thing. Like, I mean, you don't need like any crazy prior experience, I mean, personally, like I chose kind of a path that Patrick kind of took where I, started on a smaller scale and then worked my way up. I think that's just beneficial for some people, just to kind of see what you like and where you want to be. But like, honestly, just the passion and the desire to do it.
I agree 100%. The only thing you have to have is just the will to want to, because you don't need a certain GPA. You don't need like a certain background. You just like, hey, I have these ideas and I just want to be around other people that's just trying to push it. So, and that's just like the biggest thing. Everybody on the board now is just like so ready to jump on any ideas or any projects, and it makes it easy. And so that's, I would say, you just have to want to be involved and just do different things.
Yeah, and I love that you said too that you don't need prior leadership experience. Like you don't have to have a ton of leadership experience. There are plenty of people who are like, I want to serve on the student assembly board of directors that have not served with an APTA, and that sometimes is like super valuable too. So if you're listening to this tonight and you're like questioning whether you should apply for this big national position and you're like, I haven't done anything, that's okay. Like you can absolutely still apply and your opinions still matter. You are a valuable leader. within APTA. And I think what's important to remember too, like I'm sure you guys have had it as well, there are plenty of leadership opportunities that I have applied for that I didn't get. So it's okay that you don't always get elected. Sometimes you see a position, you're like, oh, I'd be perfect for this. This is awesome. And you like apply, you put in all the work, and they're like, you were not selected. You're like, cool, thanks. Now what? And so you just kind of keep going, and you look for a different one. You find something else that you can do, whether that's coming to an APTA live like tonight, or one of our student socials, or an event within an academy, or like a state chapter. There's so many opportunities to get involved. Like Hannah and Patrick have both mentioned, they served at almost like a micro level, like you serve at the district or the state, or like on a project committee, and really progress your way up. So there are so many options for getting involved. What is your time commitment currently for leadership involvement or being involved in the APTA? I know we're kind of at like a higher role here, serving on a national board, but what is the time commitment like?
So this is such a hard question to answer because it so depends on the week. I guess like it could be as low as like 3 or 4 hours a week, and then like be way more like 7 hours a week, I guess. Honestly, it really depends on the time, like especially with what's going on. So like, when we have project committees that are being applied for, and then we have to go through all the applications and things like that, that's usually like a week or two that has a lot more work. And then when we're kind of in this like lull where there's not as many applications for things or whatever and stuff like that, then it's not as much. Most of my time, right, like a lot of times is answering emails. So I don't know, I don't like think those take terribly long. And it's stuff I have to do anyways. It's be on email all the time. So not a lot. But I also do other things. So I'm also still involved in the pediatric section, and then I'm also involved in world physiotherapy. So my time commitment tends to be a little bit higher than some other people if you're only doing, one thing or whatever. So I feel like I'm not always the best person to ask about time commitments because I tend to put a lot on my plate, and I don't always recommend that for everyone else unless you really like being busy.
For sure. Patrick, what would you say for time commitment? Especially like you can even reference some of your past roles, like what your time commitment has been for that.
Well, right now, it's like Hannah was saying, it's hard to kind of put like a number on it. Nomcom right now, like between the three of us, we meet once a week for an hour, and then you can consider we like to just talk to different individuals that have questions about any leadership positions, the questions. I don't consider that like time commitment because it just seems so easy. Like I'm either just like on Twitter, just chatting with someone, or just like texting someone. So it's like you could consider it, but I don't. So if I had to put a number on it, maybe 2 to 3 hours a week as of now. But as the applications close and we have to start reviewing applications, and then between June 21st and July 18th with the interviews for the SBOD, the NomCom hours is about to go up because we have just a lot of things that we have to get through. But it ebbs and flows, especially with the board. There's different project committees that you could get involved with, or you can not get involved with depending on other time. So it really just depends on how much you want to put into it, because there's not a set number of hours you have to put in.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Like, it really depends how much you want to put into it. Like, that very much describes my role as director of communications too. Like, sometimes I spend a lot of time on social media, but that's also because I enjoy it and it's fun. And it's hard to even consider those like hours that I'm like working or like time committed to the role, because it's like, that's what I like to do. But yeah, if I were to kind of look at my role, it really depends on what is going on as well. I think I spend more time than maybe the average person, kind of similar to Hannah, just because I am more involved. But even like within the Academy of Pelvic Health, where I'm involved as a student SIG director, like that is a once a month meeting and then whatever other events we plan. So you're talking like maybe 1 to 2 hours a week. And I think it's important to remember too, like if you don't want to be in a year-long leadership position, there are committees that meet for like a small period of time. There's shorter term commitments for leadership roles. And sometimes there's even like day-long things or an hour-long thing. So it's like you don't need to spend 10, 12 hours a week volunteering or like doing stuff with the APTA to be involved and to get something out of it. Sometimes it is those small micro commitments, those hour-long events that you attend out of the blue that you're like, wow, this would like really changed my whole perspective on this topic, or like really inspired me to go and do this. So there are those opportunities that exist within APTA, which I think are cool as well. Have you guys ever been involved at like the district level or the state level?
Yeah, so previously I served as the secretary of Connecticut's Student SIG, and then served as president of Connecticut's Student SIG the year after. So I did that. I'm trying to think. I guess like you could consider this district E level, but I worked alongside a group of students and created the New England Student Conclave. So we did that. Unfortunately, it got canceled because of COVID, but it continued this year virtually. So that I'm just glad that it kept going.
And I was the Connecticut core ambassador, and so I worked with Hannah as well because she was part of the SIG. So core ambassador worked with the SIG, and we try to do things together. So and just put together our networks.
Lindsay, I don't hear you. Your sound's out.
Ooh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry. I'm like, I got a mute button on my actual microphone. So sometimes I use that versus the computer. Anyway, what I was saying was I have not been as involved at the district or state level, but I know a lot of people find that experience a lot more intimate, especially if you're going to like a district meeting, then you're like meeting with other PTs, PTAs, other students in your local area, which especially if you're planning on staying in that area post PT school, can be a really valuable network. And I think that's kind of a point that all of us have brought up is like leadership brings in different networks, student involvement, just getting involved, going to conferences, going to different events. You meet people that are really handy sometimes and really have a lot to offer to you. Like Hannah mentioned, finding a clinical experience on Twitter. And like, I've been able to do the same thing, either find someone like housing on Twitter, or you just find different opportunities. Like I found my job through Facebook and a friend I knew on Instagram. So like those opportunities exist. But being involved and wanting to be involved is kind of the key there. So I think right now we'll take a quick break and go into a couple announcements here. So if our speakers need to grab a drink or anything, we'll be right back. For announcements, like we mentioned earlier, applications for the 2021-22 Student Assembly Board of Directors are now open. You can apply from now until May 31st on APTA Engage. If you have any questions about the time commitment, what is expected on the Student Assembly Board of Directors, or about any of the specific roles, you can reach out to our nominating committee, anyone on this panel tonight, or probably anyone on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. We're all very open. We'd love to chat with you and talk about what we love about our role. You can also check out our Instagram at APTA Student Members, where we have highlights from our Student Assembly Board of Directors Instagram story takeovers explaining everything we love about our roles and what we have gotten out of serving on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. Additionally, we have the APTA Knowledge Bowl happening on June 30th. This is powered by EBS and Score Builders. So we will have 10 teams competing in the first ever virtual APTA Knowledge Bowl. But participation is crucial in this event. So we are expecting and we would love for you to attend this virtual event. This will be a great opportunity to review all of the information you've been learning in PT/PTA school, especially if you're prepping for the NPTE this year. You'll definitely want to take advantage, come play in the virtual Knowledge Bowl and check your knowledge. Additionally, we have our next APTA Student Social coming up on June 13th with the topic Why Representation Matters. So we would love to see you at that event. You can register currently on APTA Engage, and the Zoom link will be sent out the day of the event. Additionally, House of Delegates is coming up in September, so be watching for more information on the House of Delegates Student Network and how you can get more involved. We also have our monthly Centennial lecture series still happening, and students can participate in that. There is a once-a-month lecture series, all dedicated to the APTA Centennial celebration. And additionally, more Centennial celebration events will be happening this September, including our Centennial Gala, so be watching for more information on how you can participate and be a part of our Centennial celebrations. All right, we will go ahead and bring our panelists back. If any of the guests have any other questions, anything coming up you want to know about student involvement or student leadership experience, please drop your comments in the chat and we'll be sure to cover them. So let's get back to it. Hannah and Patrick, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience serving on the Student Assembly Board of Directors? Kind of what you have gotten out of that. I know we've only been in these roles for about 6 months, so we're only halfway through our term, but what have you gotten out of it? What do you do? What do you love?
One thing I would like to say that I really appreciate is everybody's so willing to pick up some slack because we understand life happens. And so like, if I can just let someone know like, hey, I won't be able to make this meeting or do this. Can you help me out? Like, everybody's just so nice and like so willing to just step up for you. So if you feel like you're afraid to commit because of the time requirements, just know it's like everybody on the board understands life happens. You're not going to always be at 100%, but you always got the team to pick you up.
Absolutely. I think for myself, well, first off, I've learned Robert's rules, so that was really different for me.
Hannah, you're really quiet, Hannah.
Oh, I don't know why.
There you go.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. So I've learned Robert's rules, which is, something. But besides that, I think honestly, the really cool part for me was early on, I made phone calls with every single one of you on the board, and we talked just like about like your passions, what you want to do, things like that. And that was honestly the coolest thing for me, because I got to take notes and like connect the dots and be like, oh, like this person really wants to do this and it's kind of similar to this person, like let's like link them together. And I think it's really cool to be on a board that every person has these specific passions that are like very well related to their positions. And it's so cool to be able to like delegate tasks to people that I know could do things like 20 times better than me. And so I don't know, I just think it's really cool to see a bunch of people come together with all these separate passions and like create these really cool events or, things like that. I think that's really fun.
Yeah, so true. And that's one of the cool things about the Student Assembly Board of Directors too. Like you have 10 students that in most cases, or at least recently, have been so diverse with like completely different backgrounds, completely different ideas and passions and experiences that they're bringing to the table, that it's really allowed for a lot of growth within the Student Assembly and just everything that we're doing. Like student socials came about this year because the nominating committee saw a need and we were like, how are we going to fill this? How are we going to fill this gap that conferences made up for when you met in person? Like students didn't have an opportunity to network and meet each other, and they wanted to fill that, and that's what they did. So I just think you do have a lot of unique and different backgrounds coming to the board, and with that, you're able to do so much and kind of create new and fantastic ideas that didn't really exist before. What do you think has been, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah. And also with that, the student socials, like you said, we just came up with this year. So if any students have any ideas, anybody they would like to hear from, any topics, you can help us out that way. And then just like giving us some of your linking us to people you think would be great for student social.
Okay, I was making sure I wasn't muted again, but super true. Like the student socials, because they are, they're meant to be a networking event. They're meant to be an opportunity for students to get to know a little bit more about a specific area of PT or a specific aspect. Like we want to hear your ideas. We want to give students something that they care about. Like our role as Student Assembly Board of Directors, the 10 of us, is not to just recreate our ideas, but to really take ideas from all of the students, from all of our classmates, from students we meet on Twitter or on Instagram or, wherever in the country, and really take those ideas and collaborate and create something that students want and that students need. And I think, at least in my instance, like I do that because I care about the future of this profession and I want to see it get better. But Hannah and Patrick, why did you want to get involved? Like what does that do for you? What does it do for PT?
So I honestly, exactly what you said, same thing. Not only do I want to move the profession forward, but I want to be part of that. Like I want to, feel like I did my due diligence to do that and to work towards that. And I feel like it's kind of one of those things where like, just, hanging out and not, just sitting around and watching, like it's not, I don't feel like I'm doing my full duty in this profession. And that might be I don't know, that's just me and how I feel about it. And so I want to be involved. I want to try to make a better profession for everyone. But yeah, especially for students, because I feel like sometimes, there are, those people where we are only students and we're not just students. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess the same thing as you said, Lindsay.
I really like to get involved because I really just got burnt out just doing school, just studying, reading. I was like, this is just taking a toll on me. So getting involved just helped me like meet other people and then connect. And then like, I know some people that like to do this. Let me try to connect them with someone else. And so like getting involved was just like a way to just like refresh myself and just like keep my mind turning, keeping me actively engaged. Just studying just wasn't doing it for me. So I needed something else just to pick me up. I think you're muted again.
Yeah, you're muted again.
Dang it, what? I need to stop doing this. But that's such a great point, Patrick. Like I was in the same boat where I was so burnt out after my first year. Like I mentioned earlier, I really didn't get involved in APTA my first year. Like I went to CSM, but I didn't know about the Student Assembly Board of Directors. I didn't really know about student leadership opportunities. And so after my first year, like I was so burnt out. And so I started seeing these positions come up and they were like, we're looking for a volunteer. And I didn't think I was qualified for any of them either. And I applied anyway. And that kind of totally changed everything to be able to get involved and to have someone say like, I believe that you can do this. And I believe that you're a valuable asset to the profession. But having something to do other than school is a big thing. And like to be a part of something else in the profession, like not just having to learn about PT, but to help other people realize like what PT does and what PT has to offer. Like, in my opinion, I see the best way to advance the PT profession is to like let the community know what we do, like let the public know what we do. And if we can't collectively, like as a profession organization, say like, this is what PTs do, and here's how we can publicize that to the rest of the world, then it's hard. So I'm going on like a very long tangent now, but basically to get back to Patrick's point, getting involved gives you an opportunity to be involved in the profession beyond just I'm learning about school. And you really get to meet those people that have similar interests, similar passions, that are likely going to be able to help you in your path much more than some of your classmates.
I think it's so cool that, especially in the non-com role with the student socials, when we just talk to other students, it's like, oh, like we're not the only ones going through the struggle. And it's cool, like seeing talking about how the programs differ, how they're the same, and just like what other classes do to like relax, unwind, and just like try to, I don't know, just mingling, just talking, connecting. It's just a great experience.
I completely agree. What do you think has been the most rewarding aspect of being a student leader?
Oh my gosh, I just want to say network again, but I guess like personally, like the growth that it has given me. Like I said, like I was extremely quiet. I didn't step out of my comfort zone. I definitely would have never run for anything that required voting. So now I guess I have a lot more self-confidence. And I don't know, just this ability to feel like my voice matters. And I like to try to use that confidence to show others that their voice matters as well. So I guess just overall, like the personal growth that leadership and student involvement has given me in general, whether it be professionally and even personally, to be honest, because it carries over every day. So.
Patrick, go for it. What has been the most rewarding aspect?
So just creating an avenue that either people learning about new topics that they have never heard before with the student socials, or just like giving people, like the first student social was about the cash-based PT, and a lot of students were like, oh, what's this? And it's like, and there was a lot of interest in that. And so it's just been cool just like seeing like light bulbs pop and just like students start to ask different questions. And just, then just like being that, me just trying to think of different ways, like, all right, what are something else people are interested in and that I just really haven't heard much about? So like, let me be that link. Let me try to do something to match those things up.
Right, like finding ways to serve your student community and the students within APTA. I think for me, the most rewarding aspect has been finding ways to get other students involved, like me being in this position, especially like on social media, sharing things, like sharing different opportunities to get involved. I've had quite a few people reach out that are like, I would have never known about this position if you didn't post about it. Or like, I would have never known about this had you not said anything or encouraged me to get involved. And that is like the coolest thing to me. It's like if I could get one other person involved, that's a success. And I remember this last year when the nominating committee was interviewing me actually for the slate on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. And they were like, how would you measure success? And I was like, the amount of people I can get involved that would have never thought about getting involved in APTA. The more people I can get involved, the more successful I would consider that to be. And that I just think is so cool, like to take my passion and energy and be able to inspire someone else to also get involved in their own way. What do you guys recommend? Like, I get a lot of questions on how do I get involved? Like, what's the first step? But what do you recommend to students who want to get involved?
So the first thing I always say is get a Twitter to start, just because I feel like personally that like after when we were at NSC, that was the advice I was given. And so at first I was like, oh, that seems silly. Like everyone always says the same thing. Oh, well, I used to have a personal Twitter, but I never really use it anymore. Okay, well, make a new one and make it professional and get on Twitter, because I don't use my personal one either. I have not been on that in years. I don't even know the login for it. So, but I use my professional one and I check it every single day, because there's always something new on there, whether it be a thread of people talking about something or following APTA students page and seeing opportunities. And following these pages on social media is like the best way to find opportunities. And there's so many opportunities like within our profession, like related to APTA or, you know, partially related to APTA, or, you know, it, like there's so many. And I think the easiest way to come across them at the time you need to come across them before deadlines is through Twitter or Facebook and things like that. So that would be my first recommendation. And then after that, it's just look for the opportunities that speak to you. So don't spread yourself too thin. You know your limits, be able to say yes or no to certain things. And that's huge advice because I didn't know how to say no to things. And I've gotten a lot better at that. So yeah, I would just, you know, look for the opportunities that speak to you. Don't just like the first opportunity that comes up, be like, oh yeah, I'm going to apply for that. Because if you're not super passionate about it, you're not going to enjoy it. And then you may not even want to be involved again after that. So really look for the opportunities that you're like, yeah, this is something I really want to do. And then go for it. Honestly, don't be afraid. Just do it.
Best advice I've ever gotten when I wanted to apply for something and I thought I wasn't qualified. Someone was like, the worst they can say is no. I was like, oh, okay, that's true. Like, I'm in no better or worse position than now. So, Patrick, what would you say? Like, what do you recommend for students who want to get involved?
So connect to either if you want to start off smaller, so the SIG or the special interest group or the Corps ambassador, they have a lot of information on what's going on already. So the best way to connect with them is probably social media nowadays. I know like I'm not like the best with emails, but like I see your Twitter, let me just like hop in your DM and like ask you a couple of questions. Or you can also email or talk to the student board of directors. Like everyone on the board is like all welcoming and will like answer a question and try to like push you to where maybe if you come to us with like an idea, like, hey, is there any opportunities that kind of involve this? I was like, well, we can push you to someone that probably does know where you can get involved with that. As well as it's also like a full sin. Like if there's not like an opportunity that you feel like kind of fits you, talk to SIG, Corps ambassador, student board, and let's create something or put something in the works. So there's always an opportunity to get involved.
So true.
Yeah, what Patrick just said, that's huge because that's exactly what I did with the New England Student Conclave. I was just like, I was at Next, and I remember I was like, we should do a conference. And I just went up to some people that I knew in the profession. They were at their conference. I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And they were like, yeah. You know, talked to Mike Gans, who was the president of APTA Connecticut's chapter at the time. I was like, okay. And I did. And he was like, yeah, I'm on board. Are you going to get help? And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this myself. And so, yeah, that's what happened. You know, got a couple of my friends who were PT students at the time on board. And then we just created something from scratch. So I highly recommend doing that as well. If you don't see something that you want to do, make it happen. Like, just do it. I'm telling you, just do it.
Yeah, that's so true. Like I had a very similar experience with the Academy of Pelvic Health Student Special Interest Group. Like prior it existed, but like I had never heard about it. There weren't a lot of opportunities to get involved. If there were, they were at CSM in person. So like one time a year. So beyond that, you're like, what else? And so last year there were 3 people that ran for 4 director positions. So we all ran unopposed. And we took it and totally like revamped the student SIG. We were like, we really want this to be an opportunity for students to learn about pelvic health and feel like they have the resources and like the opportunities to pursue this career if they want to, because it's expensive, it's difficult. Like not a lot of schools teach about pelvic health. And you do need like a lot more specialty training. And so it's like totally transformed. We've been able to do a ton of stuff with it. And this year for the 4 director positions, I think there's 15 or 16 people running. So like a totally different turnaround. And that's something where, again, I bring it back to the time commitment. Like that's something we spend maybe 1 hour a week doing, and we've totally transformed it. So like Patrick mentioned, like if you have an opportunity or you have an idea, especially as a student, like there are very few people that are going to look at you and say no. Like most people are going to look and say, yeah, like you have an idea as a student, and if you're willing to do it, like let's do it. Let's find the opportunity. I mean, I think that's why the DEI project committee is coming about as well. Like we haven't announced the official candidate or the official, I guess, not slate, but the official board of the DEI project committee. But like we, again, saw a need and we were like, this needs to exist. We need to have these leadership opportunities with like at the student level as well. So you do have those opportunities. I know Hannah mentioned social media, and that's a great place as well. I just wanted to add in there too, like you can message people on social media. Like even big name PTs. In fact, like if you message me on social media, you're more likely to get a response than if you email me, just because sometimes emails get lost. So I think students get worried. They don't want to come off as like unprofessional by messaging through social media, like through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but like do it. You'll get your response. Definitely. We did have a question from the audience about opportunities to learn more about travel PT. So I don't know, Patrick, if you guys have anything in the future planned for that. I know we did the student social last month on managing student debt as a travel PT. So we had like a little bit of information there. Is there anything else in the future?
We don't have anything as of now, but if that is an interest, we can definitely make it happen. Yeah, so if travel PT is what's the biggest thing people want to hear about, let's do it. All for it. Looks like we lost Lindsay. What happened?
I know. What are the chances?
Okay. Oh, sorry, guys. Lost my connection for a second. But I guess we're getting a little bit close to the end here. What do you recommend for students who want to find their place within APTA? Like I think we all have kind of found our little niche or our group, our community, an area that we feel important, involved. So what do you recommend for students who want to find that?
I guess talk to people, network, and then kind of what I was saying before, just do it, you know? And to be honest, like, you know, I say all the time, like, you know, find the things that speak to you. And I know that's really hard if you're just starting. I know that was tough for me. Like I didn't totally know what I wanted to do. And so I definitely took on some positions that I would never take on now. But I learned from that and I was like, well, that's not for me. So I would just say, you know, go for it and you'll find your spot. You will find your place. You will, you know, you'll have those positions where you'll do those things that you're like, you know, that's not for me. And that's okay. Like, that's not anything to be ashamed of. That's not anything to be like, oh, well, you know, I don't want to say, no, I feel bad. No, just, if it's not for you, it's not for you, because it's probably for someone else and that's totally fine. Right. So that's what I would say is just do things, try it out, you know, don't be afraid, because there's so many people who would be willing to help you. And more than likely, unless you're creating the position, there's someone who was in that position before you. And I'm sure they're more than willing to help you. But yeah, there's plenty of people out there who would love to talk to you and point you in the right direction. I know, like for myself, I don't know everything. I don't know every position. I don't know all that, but I more than likely know someone who will know about that position or know more about it than I would. So, I mean, personally, if you had any questions, you can always come to me and I probably can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a student too, a lot of the academies and various sections offer like significant discounts for students, or sometimes it's even free. So if you're a student that you're like, I have no idea what I want to do, and like you're like, I don't know if I want to go into geriatrics or orthopedics or neurology or pelvic health, like whatever, like you have the opportunity as a student, especially as an APTA member, to really be able to connect and network with those people. And I think that's why CSM is such a great event for students as well. Like you get that opportunity to learn about the various sections and academy within APTA. And so you get that chance to network and find out like, oh, would I want a leadership position in this capacity, or like with this academy or in this specialty. And like Hannah mentioned, sometimes it is like, you just have to kind of find what works. Patrick, what do you recommend for students who are hoping to kind of find their niche, their community within APTA?
You just got to send it, full send, because you don't know what you like until you're around it, and so if you're thinking about it, that's like an indication. Well, let me go ask, let me have a conversation, let me go talk to someone that's in it. And I was like, okay, if you dig in the vibe that they're giving off, well, maybe you find your little niche, hang around for a little bit, but you change. Like it's okay. Like you don't have to choose just one. Like you're free to like move on if your thoughts change as you go along. So don't feel like if you have to choose one and stick with it. Try them all, or like whatever it is.
True. Yeah, you always have the opportunity to try different things. Like as a student, especially, I think that's the opportunity that is perfect for trying various specialties of PT, for learning about different aspects. Even as a new grad, even as a PT, like that's one of the best things about physical therapy. It's like if you change your mind, if you want to do something else, you have that flexibility and ability to change roles or change jobs. One of the things I wanted to bring up as well too, like we've talked a lot tonight about leadership positions and getting involved through leadership. You also have the opportunity to get involved by just coming to events like this, or going to a conference, or again, like the Centennial lecture series. Like there's so many opportunities to get involved that don't require you to hold a leadership position. Like you can get involved and just be a part of APTA, just show up. And that's like, that sometimes is the hardest thing to get people. Like, we're like, just show up, just come, please. And like, I know there's a lot of students who are probably like, they feel the same way with their classmates in APTA. Like they are so passionate about APTA and getting involved, and they're like begging their classmates, like, please just come to one thing, or like learn about this event. And to me, I'm like, if I can inspire one or two people, then I'm good. But again, you don't need to get involved necessarily at the leadership role, especially not the national level representing 30,000 plus students. Like you don't have to be us to make an impact in this profession. Like there are so many things you can do that start really with just showing up. So we did have a question. They were wondering if we know, or if there is an active list of project committees on the Student Assembly Board of Directors. So I know we have the Advocacy Project Committee, and then we're making the DEI Project Committee that'll launch this year. Are there any other ones that we have within the Student Assembly Board of Directors? Or
those are the only ones currently. There have been previous ones, but as of right now, those are the only ones. I know previously I served on the Community Service Project Committee when that existed, but it didn't exist last year, and it doesn't exist this year as of now. And then, like Patrick said, he was on the NSC, but with the NSC not happening, I don't foresee that project committee coming about. Trying to think. I think those are like the main ones. I know there were some other ones like a while back, but right now, just those two. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a Centennial Project Committee as well, but again, that's happening this year. The good news is you have the opportunity to create more. Like we mentioned earlier, the DEI Project Committee was something that this year's board wanted to implement, and we're hoping lasts for years to come. So if you are on that board in the future, if that is one of your roles, you do have the opportunity to create that project committee, or something that you feel that the Student Assembly needs in general. which again is like one of the super cool parts of being a student leader. It's like, I have this idea and now it just happens. You're like, I get to make it happen for real. Alrighty.
If there's like a project committee anyone wants to see or ideas, let me know. We can talk about it.
Exactly. We'd love to hear all of your ideas. And again, you can reach out to any of us on social media, reach out to the APTA student members page on Instagram or APTA students on Twitter. Again, let us know your ideas. Like, our job really is to represent all of you and make sure that what you need becomes a reality. And so our job is really to serve and to be representatives for the students. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be a part of those conversations. And we love for you to be involved. Come to APTA Lives like this, come to our student socials, show up at your district meetings, at the state meetings, the conferences if you can. Like, hopefully in the future we have opportunities for both virtual and in person for those who can't travel to make it in person. So there are lots of opportunities to get involved. We are kind of wrapping up the end of our hour-long talk here. Hannah and Patrick, did you have any final words for our audience tuning in tonight?
I guess kind of what I've said a million times, but don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Just do it. If you see someone on Twitter that really inspires you, or you really look up to them and you want to do things that they're doing, say something to them, reach out to them. If there's a position that you're like, hey, this looks really cool, I want to know more about it, reach out to whoever's involved in it or apply for it. Just, don't be afraid to do it, because, like Lindsay said, the worst they can do is say no. And I'm telling you that if you reach out to someone, I don't think anyone's going to be like, nope, I'm not talking to you. So, applications are a little different, but again, like, that's the worst they can say. And at least you went for it. And I always have said, if one door closes, there's a million more to open. I've been in positions where I have, I lost the election for the Student Assembly Board of Directors, not this previous year, but the year before. And, it was a learning experience, and I took a lot from that. And then other doors opened. So I think that is extremely important,
I love that too. There are a lot of doors that will open within your PT career, PTA career, and especially your time within APTA. So, if you don't get the opportunity you've been wanting or you feel like is the best for you, know that there's something probably better coming along. Patrick, any final words?
Go for it. So, like Hannah said, just message the people that are in the positions now. If you have any questions, just want to emphasize, like, for the student board of director, applications end on May 31st. So get those in. If you have any questions, you can shoot a message to anyone on the board, and we'll have a conversation. We'll just let you know what we do more in depthly, and then we'll help you guide if we can point you into any direction that we can help.
Yeah, I think that's great. I was going to also emphasize that applications are due May 31st. And so you can find those on APTA Engage if you are interested in applying. And I highly recommend, if anything we have said tonight has inspired you, sparked your interest, if you're like, oh, I need to learn a little bit more about that, like, please at least check it out and then apply, because it will absolutely change your life. It has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my time in PT school to be involved within the APTA, and especially now at this national level, and to represent and serve all of the students within APTA. I think it's something that, I'm going to remember forever, and it has definitely molded me into the individual I am today. So I'm proud of that. I hope you guys are as well, because I think even though we just now graduated, we are no longer students. All of us are going to continue to be involved with APTA, continue to be involved in the profession, and continue to make our impact. All right, and we'll go ahead and drop all of the contact information for Hannah, for Patrick, for myself. If anyone does have any questions or wants to reach out about our role serving as directors for the Student Assembly Board of Directors, we're halfway through our term, so we kind of have a pretty good idea of what it's like. Still have a lot more to go, but we are excited for this next board of directors. So we will go ahead and wrap everything up tonight. If anyone else has any other questions, please let us know. Again, my name is Lindsay Durand. I am your Student Assembly Director of Communications, and thank you for joining us for APTA Live Student Night.